Well, good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here in a full room. Number 18. I've been to all 18 of these. This is super exciting. As Jen mentioned, I mean, my role here at Environics Analytics is really to help take what your needs are in the market, in a rapidly changing market, and to translate those and make sure that we are able to answer them with our wonderful tools that we have. I think you'll all agree that there's a lot happening in analytics these days. It's a pretty exciting time. What I'm going to talk to you about today is some of the things that we've been doing briefly to make sure that we're responding well, and then talk a little bit about some of the bigger trends that are happening out there and show you how we actually implement those quite specifically with our data so that we can make it real, which is so much of the challenge of how do you take those big picture trends and respond to them appropriately in your day-to-day worlds. So, I don't know if you've seen the McKinsey State of the Consumer report that came out back in June. It's a great read. They have important global consumer trends. They benchmark Canada against many countries around the world. So you really get a nice read on what's happening with consumers. In it, there are four main imperatives or recommendations that they talk about. Two of them are super relevant to what we are interested in here today, or that I'm going to talk about today. But you know what the number one imperative that they had at the top of their list? Build micro-marketing capabilities. That's a little validating given what we do. We've been doing it for a long time. And I'm just going to read for you just a short part of what they say. It says, rather than putting consumers in predefined and often outdated boxes, companies should focus on micro-targeting, to build a richer understanding of consumer preferences. This involves taking a smart reach approach whereby consumer businesses use their consumer data to target specific microsegments of consumers who may demonstrate particular shopping behaviors or preferences. Sounds kind of familiar, huh? Now, love the big consulting companies. They find these trends and they explain to us what we should be doing to capitalize on them and how we should be adapting. But of course, there's the challenge of how do you put it into implementation? How do you put it to work and make it practical that we can all act on it? So, there's a lot of work, intricate work under the hood to create a sports car. And that, by the way, as I understand it, is an Audi concept car. And Audi Canada, as some of you may recall, was our client of the year last year. But to make that sports car go, you need to do a lot of work under the hood to get all of that analytics working so that you can act on it and use it. It's great to know that we've been on the right track all along. I mean, we've been in business for over 20 years, creating that analytical sports car for the Canadian market for all of you, so that we can really make sure that we can put the analytics to use. And it's great to see that our hard work has actually been paying off. Geodemography, as some still call it, as it certainly was called in the past, is finally being recognized as a powerful engine that supports analytics and insights to support decision-making in marketing, communications, and real estate decisions that it rightly deserves. So what I want to do next is just talk a little bit about what we've been doing over the last number of years to make sure that this sports car is relevant for today's market. So, first thing is, we've been giving the sports car a bigger engine. And what I mean by that is we've been making great efforts over many years to ensure that we have modernized data to answer the changing market that you face. If you just look at some of the things, these are not even all of the sort of innovative databases that we've launched over the past decade or so. It covers a lot of new data sources, so a lot of big data sources, so mobile movement data like that you find in MobileScapes and Footfall and Visitor View and Mover Stats. These are all databases and Clickstream data that measures web visits to websites. So when you put all that together, this is big data. These are relatively recently available data sources that allow us to measure trends and understand consumer behavior in a way that we never could before. We've also searched high and low for other databases, other survey sources that allow us to answer more questions that you need to be able to operate in the marketplace. So things like our green living that gets at environmental behaviors and attitudes. We've partnered up with Nielsen IQ and we get detailed CPG data so that you can get category, brand, and even subcategory level data that really helps you understand the consumer in a very intricate kind of section of the market. And then data around newcomers to Canada. Every quarter, we're modeling down how many newcomers are going into every neighborhood in the country, from which country they're coming from, and we're updating that every single quarter. And mover stats, in and out of neighborhoods, people relocating their homes. So these are all real big innovations, and this is only some of them. That's how we're building the engine, making a bigger engine to that sports car. The next thing that we need to do is make sure that that engine is connected to more things. Jan mentioned some of these things before, and you're going to be hearing more of this theme today. It really is about facilitating connecting all of that data together, which we've been doing all along. Just the ability to make those connections today is like it never has been before. Your consumer data, your partners' data that you may have, and our data, of course, all in a privacy compliant and secure manner. And then, of course, all of that needs to get connected to the marketing activation ecosystem so you can do something with it. Again, it's always been partly connected. We've really made a lot of progress in the last few years on making it much more fully connected. So I've talked a lot about what EA's been doing. Let's just go back to McKinsey. Why would they make this an imperative now? I mean, we've been working on this stuff for years. Why now is micro-targeting so important? Well, when I looked at it, I see two main drivers of why it's so important now. We've heard lots about the fragmented Canadian landscape, or the fragmented consumer landscape generally everywhere. I'm obviously going to focus on Canada. There's changing demographics, there's more complex consumer desires and needs and options for them. The way they shop is different. The channels that they purchase in is splintered and complex. Really to help respond to all of this complexity that's out there, we're bringing data that helps you respond to that. We're assembling it, and we're helping you analyze it and guide you on how to use it properly. Now, what I want to do is show you two specific examples of big picture trends that are happening out there that we all know about, and how we at EA can bring the data to use to help you respond to them. How to get that sports car on the right road for you, to use the analogy. So multicultural and newcomers, I mean, we hear about it all the time, right? I mean, it's in the news every single day that, we're at record levels of immigration in this country, society is changing, it's much more diverse than it used to be. Soon, all population growth in this country will come from immigration. Basically, our natural increase is zero or negative, or will be very soon. I'm sure Doug Norris has we'll talk more about that at some point today. So any business or organization that is looking for growth is looking to newcomers to drive that business growth. If you're a telco, if you're a bank, if you're a CPG business, if you're a government organization, you need to understand how to reach and communicate with those newcomers, because that's the segment of the population that's actually growing. But we're still often so simplistic in how we think about this. We still say, oh, I need to target newcomers. I need to target South Asians, or whatever the group may be. And I was at the Retail Council. We're very proud supporters of the Retail Council of Canada. I was at their marketing conference last week giving a talk, and one of the other discussions, the head of marketing for IKEA Canada talked exactly about this. She was talking about multicultural marketing, and I'm kind of paraphrasing what she said, but she said that you know, we can't be targeting South Asians anymore. You have to get specific within that very large group of 2+ million people, depending on how you define it in this country, who it is you're trying to reach, so that you can connect with them and the experiences that they have and be relevant to their needs and talk to them in the right tone and voice with the right messages. Music to my ears, because we've been saying this for a long time. So, in that spirit, okay, what I did here was I took from our new to Canada data, okay, in which, as I said, is updated quarterly. This is 12 months to the end of March of this year. There were 131,000 approximately people who immigrated as permanent residents from India into Canada. And we think about, oh, well, I need to reach, if you think about trying to reach these people in one brush, look at the lifestyles that they belong to. What I did here is we segmented where those newcomers are coming from across the different PRISM segments, and then kind of grouped them up into these different broad lifestyle types. So, you know, call it target groups or whatever you want to call it. But if you think about it, there's a variety of lifestyles here beyond what is traditionally thought of as where South Asians or Indians go. It's not just Brampton or Surrey. There's a variety of places. So that first group, a quarter of them, are going to what I called multi-ethnic suburbia, which is basically any current suburb in any big city in this country. A quarter of them are going there. About 20% of them are going to the South Asian enclaves, very highly concentrated South Asian neighborhoods in the suburbs. Another 18% are in what I called apartment living. So these are young people, singles and couples, typically without kids, living in apartments downtown. Going to have very different needs, a bit younger, probably lower incomes because they're really just starting out. And then 8% of them are going in what we called affluence to start. These are the very top PRISM segments. Okay, so the top 6 or 7 PRISM segments. These are people immigrating and going directly there and living in very affluent areas. So they're probably coming with some assets and with good jobs that are lined up for them as they get here. So very different experiences, and if you're trying to reach these populations, you're gonna have to tailor your ask and figure out who it is you wanna reach. So just to kind of bring the point home, a lot of numbers on this chart, but really if you think about how does the data actually work, when we say multicultural or we say newcomers, you really have to define and size your audience. I mean, if you look here on this slide, are you talking about immigration and where they are in that immigration journey? So, you know, permanent residents are a very small % of the population who have come in the last year. They're like single-digit percentages, whereas anyone who is an immigrant or the child of an immigrant, the right-hand side of that chart, almost half the population falls into that category, right? But that's the proportion of the population that has some connection in this country to immigration. Or are you talking about visible minorities, or are you talking about religion, or are you talking about language? So again, I mean, the size of that market varies greatly, so you need to think about these things. And we can help you do that, and we have the tools and experience to do that. Then, of course, as you're on that newcomer or multicultural journey, not only do you need to size and define the market, a lot of our tools, like I just showed you with PRISM or our acculturates segmentation, allows you to get deeper into the different kinds of lifestyles that these populations are having. So you can be more relevant. You can understand who you're trying to target and what their lifestyles are and what to say to them. And then finally, the measurement. A lot of discussion today about measuring is how important it is. You can bring your customer data into the mix. If you don't have customer data, our MobileScapes data could help depending on the context. And you can even use our name coding, our origins name coding that helps you kind of identify people in different groups so that you can see where you're at and what progress you're making as you go out and try to reach these consumers and really quantify what you're doing. Again, you got to put it together properly, but if you do that, the payoff can be so much greater. Just to kind of drive the point home quickly, if you look on a map, you know, these are different definitions of that multicultural market. These are where you find temporary residents who have immigrated to Canada. And if I just keep flipping through the maps here, the red areas are high concentration and the bluish areas are 0 to low concentrations. These are new to Canada permanent residents. Those are all recent immigrants in the past 5 years. This is all immigrants. So you can see how the concentrations shift. Yeah, sure, Brampton's lighting up big all through this, but if you actually look at where you are in the rest of the Toronto area, your concentrations of where you might decide to do your marketing, your retail strategy changes. So it's important to kind of get in on that detail. Let me give you another quick example. Value seeking. This is something that the McKinsey study raised as well. That was their number 4 imperative. That consumers who even used to be premium consumers, premium priced brand name consumers, are trading down for value. They're willing to go with the budget options if there's value. So how do we respond to that, given all the data that we have? They're saying, okay, you should offer premium when it matters. That's great. Well, let's look at this. Discount versus full-service grocery. I mean, a lot of people, there's been a lot of talk about this in recent years with all the food inflation that we've seen. If we look at using our Mobilescapes data and identify people who cross-shop between Loblaws and No Frills, quite an interesting picture gets developed. So what we did here is we took all the stores in the Toronto area over the last summer months, June, July, and August, and identified how many visitors there were. So at Loblaws, there were almost 900,000 visitors, unique visitors, to a Loblaws store. 35% of them cross-shop to No Frills, okay? So, you know, a significant proportion. The other way around, if we look at No Frills, there are about 1.3, 1.4 million visitors, and only about 22% of them cross-shopped, so Loblaws. So, you know, right off the bat, okay, so, you know, this underlines the trend that we were just talking about. Consumers are willing to trade down. So those Loblaws, if you could say that they're more kind of tend to be premium consumers, are more likely to go to No Frills than the other way around. But who are they? If we start looking at our PRISM data, it tells us more about who those cross-shopping consumers are likely to be. So remember, 35% of the Loblaws shoppers go to No Frills. Well, if we look at which of our PRISM segments are much more highly likely, they're all young singles apartment types in the city, okay? They are a third more likely, or 30% more likely to be cross-shopping to No Frills, even than that Loblaws average. So they're going back and forth, and there's a very distinct kind of profile. If we look more at the affluent families, you know, high SESI segments, they are much more loyal to Loblaws. They're 30% less likely to be cross-shopping with No Frills, okay? So again, if you're a retailer and you're understanding these trends, your location strategy, your assortment strategy, your pricing strategy gets impacted by this. So it's important to know, and this is just all data that's there that you can pull out and take a look at. All right, the second driver, going back to that original McKinsey study, that I think we're seeing other than the changing consumer marketplace, and I'll touch on this pretty lightly today, is marketing effectiveness and the MarTech environment that we're in. I mean, Jan has mentioned a lot about it. My colleague Evan is going to be talking about this in much more detail. But really, the demands on data and analytics are such that connecting what we all do, from insights to activation, to insights to marketing, to activation, to measurement, is becoming a demand from our businesses. And so that driver requires more persistent data from insights, from that whole stretch to persist throughout, so that you can actually do the measurement. You use the same data that you get the insights. That same data allows you to develop the marketing. The same data allows you to activate, and then you're able to measure. So that's where we've been working on all of those connections that we talked about between the data. So we're trying to connect the, you know, we're the third-party data EA traditionally in this not very good chart, I'm sorry. But we're the third-party data in this. But your first-party data is really your transactional data, your customer data, whatever you have. second-party data is someone else's first-party data that you have the permission to use, that you're then able to learn more about your own customers or target them in some way. So whether it's a marketing partner or a publisher that allows you to target their subscribers so that you can actually get your message in front of them. So together, when you put this all together, it's very powerful because you understand more about your customers, you understand more about the market that you're in and your non-customers, so that you're able to really understand who you can target and you're more effective at acquisition. And then, of course, you know, all of this is making sure that the data is available in flexible platforms so that you can access it easily, whether it's you know, in Snowflake or in Azure or any of the other platforms that are out there, and that all of it's connected to the marketing activation platforms that you can then, you know, tailor your ad spend properly, and drive your media buys and then measure the results at the end of it. So you're going to hear a lot more of this later today. So, and of course measuring the ROI, as I said. So I'll end it there. It really is an exciting time in analytics. For all of us, we're all part of the same family here, and hope you get some ideas today from all the presentations you're going to see.